Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're really going to dig into something that's been buzzing in the health world, glucose.
Yeah, glucose, blood sugar, it's gotten a lot of attention lately.
It really has, and for good reason, but I think there are still a lot of misconceptions floating around.
Definitely. A lot of people hear glucose and think it's only relevant if you have diabetes.
Exactly. And while it's definitely crucial for folks managing diabetes, it's actually relevant for, well, pretty much everyone.
It's true. I mean, it impacts our energy, our mood, how our skin looks, even how well we age.
It's wild. So
Uh,
today, we're going to break it all down with the help of biochemist and author, you know her, Jessie Inchauspé, the glucose goddess herself.
oh, I love her approach. She takes something that could be, kind of complicated and makes it fun and understandable.
Yes. Totally. She's all about empowering us with knowledge, not fear-mongering, which I appreciate.
And she uses those continuous glucose monitors, those CGMs, to show exactly what's happening in our bodies when we eat different foods.
Yeah, talk about eye-opening. It's like seeing those sugar spikes in real time.
Makes you realize how much those sneaky spikes are happening without us even knowing it.
Right, and the crazy thing is, 1 billion people globally are dealing with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes.
1 billion, that's a staggering number.
It is, and even if you don't fall into those categories, studies show that up to 80% of us are experiencing these glucose ups and downs daily.
Which is why understanding how to manage those spikes is so important for overall health.
Absolutely. So let's dive into some of the myths Jessie debunks, starting with the idea of good sugar versus bad sugar.
Oh, I used to think that honey or agave was somehow superior to table sugar just because it sounded healthier.
Oh yeah, totally. We've all been there.
But Jessie sets the record straight on that one.
She does, and in her interview on The Diary of a CEO, she says, the sugar in a can of soda is also natural. It comes from sugar beets or canes, and it's true.
Right, it all ends up as glucose in your bloodstream.
Exactly. So it's less about the source and more about the concentration and how quickly it hits your system.
Makes total sense, and that actually reminds me of something else she talks about grapes.
Grapes, what about them?
They seem innocent enough, right? But those little guys are like sugar bombs in disguise.
No way. I always thought grapes were a healthy snack.
You would, but because they've been selectively bred for sweetness over the years, grapes can spike your blood sugar more than you might think.
Wow, so even seemingly healthy choices can have a big impact.
They really can, and it's not just sugary foods that we have to watch out for.
Oh, you're going to tell me my beloved bread is betraying me too, aren't you?
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but those starches like bread and pasta, while not sweet to the taste, are basically long chains of glucose.
So that comforting bowl of pasta is, what, basically like eating a bowl full of sugar?
Pretty much. But hey, knowledge is power, right?
It is. So that's the thing. It's not about completely eliminating these foods, but more about understanding how they affect us and making informed choices.
Exactly. And Jessie's got some really cool hacks for managing those glucose spikes, which we'll get into in a bit.
Okay, I am definitely ready for those hacks.
Yeah.
Spill the beans. What's the first one? Okay, ready to have my world rocked? What's this first hack all about?
So, get this. Hack number 1 is all about embracing a savory breakfast.
Wait, hold up. You're saying ditch the pancakes and pastries.
Yeah.
I need more convincing on that one.
Think of it this way. Starting your day with a meal that won't spike your blood sugar, it'll set you up for smoother energy throughout the day.
So instead of that mid-morning crash after my usual sugary cereal, I'm telling you, it's a ritual at this point. I'm saying I could actually be focused and energized all morning.
Exactly. And bonus, it can help with those cravings later in the day. You know how it is when that sugar roller coaster starts?
Don't remind me. I'm already reaching for the candy jar just thinking about it. Okay, sold. What's next?
All right, this one might sound a little strange at first, but hear me out. Vinegar.
Vinegar, like straight from the bottle. I'm going to need some instructions here.
No, not like that at all. Jessie recommends diluting a tablespoon of vinegar, like apple cider vinegar, in a big glass of water.
Okay, that's more like... I was starting to get worried for a second there. But how does that help with blood sugar? It seems kind of random.
So vinegar has this thing called acetic acid, and it can actually slow down how fast your body turns carbs into glucose.
Wait, really? So it's like putting the brakes on that sugar rush? I did not know that.
Yep. It's not about avoiding carbs altogether. It's just about being smart about how we eat them.
Love that. It's all about strategy. All right, what else you got?
This one is super simple but makes a big difference. Prioritize veggies at mealtime.
Veggies, you mean like a salad before my pasta?
Exactly. Think of those veggies as your secret weapon against sugar spikes. They're full of fiber, and when you eat them first, it creates this sort of, I don't know, a buffle in your stomach.
A buffer, like a protective layer against the sugar onslaught. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it slows down how quickly those sugars from other foods get absorbed. It's like building a little dam in there.
A dam, a buffer, whatever it is, I'm here for it. Especially if it means I can still enjoy my pasta without feeling like I'm going to fall asleep afterward.
Exactly. Small changes, big impact. Speaking of which, the last hack is all about getting moving after you eat.
Okay, that's one hack I can definitely get on board with.
Yeah.
I'm always down for a post-meal walk. Helps with the food coma, too, you know what I mean?
Right. But it's not just about digestion, although that's a nice bonus. When you move around after eating, your muscles use up some of that glucose for energy.
So even just like a quick walk around the block or something can make a difference.
Absolutely. Even gentle movement can have a big impact on how your body handles that post-meal glucose surge.
See, I like these hacks. They're actually doable, not some crazy restrictive diet.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask, this all seems very focused on weight. What about those of us who aren't necessarily looking to lose weight? Is this still relevant?
Such a good point, and honestly, that's something Jessie talks about a lot. It's not just about weight, it's about overall health and well-being.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense, like feeling good from the inside out.
Exactly, and it goes way beyond just weight. For instance, did you know that those blood sugar spikes we've been talking about, yeah, they can actually speed up aging.
Wait, what? Seriously? Okay, I knew those late night cookie binges weren't doing me any favors, but I didn't realize it was actually aging me faster. What's the connection there?
So it all comes down to this process called glycation. Remember how we talked about starches being long chains of glucose? Well, when those glucose molecules build up, they can actually start to bind to proteins in your body.
Proteins.
Eh.
Like the stuff that makes up our, well, everything. Okay, now I'm really interested. Keep going.
So two of the proteins that glucose loves to latch onto are collagen and elastin.
Collagen, isn't that the stuff everyone's putting on their face these days? What does that have to do with sugar?
Well, collagen and elastin, they're what keeps our skin firm and youthful. They're like the building blocks of bouncy, young-looking skin, you know?
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see where this is going, and I don't know if I like it.
Right. So basically, when you have too much glucose floating around, it's like those sugar molecules start attaching themselves to those precious collagen and elastin fibers. And, well, it's not pretty.
Not pretty, like wrinkles and sagging skin, not pretty.
Joe got it. It's like accelerated aging from the inside out.
Okay, I officially have a love-hate relationship with glucose. It's essential, but it can also wreak havoc. What other health impacts are we talking about here?
It's incredible, right? And it doesn't stop at the skin. Glucose also plays a role in hormonal balance, especially for women.
Okay, yeah, hormones are a whole other beast. But I'm guessing you're going to tell me that glucose can mess with those too, right?
You know it.
Right.
It's complicated, but research is showing that managing glucose levels can help with things like PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome.
Yeah, PCOS, that's a big one. A lot of women struggle with that.
Yeah.
So for those dealing with irregular cycles or acne, all those hormonal things, stable blood sugar could be because of the puzzle.
Exactly. It's definitely worth exploring. And get this, there's even emerging research about glucose and our mental health.
Mental health.
Yeah.
Really? I had no idea there was a connection there.
It's fascinating stuff. One study followed people for 10 years, a decade, and found that those who developed insulin resistance, which often comes from those prolonged high glucose levels, were more likely to experience major depression later on.
Wow, 10 years is a long time for a study. That's pretty convincing evidence. It makes you think, could keeping our glucose stable be a key, not just for our physical health, but also for a more stable mood?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it really highlights what Jessie's all about. Knowledge is power. She always says, I'm not anti-sugar, I'm pro-knowledge, and I love that.
Me too. It's about understanding how our bodies work and making informed choices, not about restricting ourselves or feeling guilty.
Exactly. And as we've seen with these glucose hacks, small changes can make a huge difference.
That's true. Swapping out that sugary cereal for a savory breakfast, adding a splash of vinegar to our water, going for a walk after dinner, those are all things we can actually do.
And they add up. But speaking of solutions, we have to talk about those GLP-1 medications that are everywhere in the news these days.
Oh yeah, the weight loss drugs, everyone's talking about them. What's the deal with those? Are they like a magic bullet for blood sugar and weight?
Well, they're definitely showing promising results. They work by mimicking this natural hormone, GLP-1, that helps regulate blood sugar and appetite.
But I know Jessie also brought up this idea of a GLP-1 dilemma. What's that all about?
It's a really interesting point. It makes you think, are these medications a true solution, or are they kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a bigger problem?
Like, are we just masking the symptoms of an unhealthy food environment or lifestyle.
Exactly. It's a complex issue, and there's no easy answer. But it does raise some important questions about our relationship with food and our health.
It really does. If what we eat can have such a profound impact, not just on our own well-being, but on our society as a whole,
Yeah.
don't we have a responsibility to be more mindful, to create a healthier future for ourselves and for generations to come?
Absolutely. It's something to think about, and maybe a good place to leave it for today's deep dive.
I think so too. Lots to ponder. All right, everyone. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be kind to your glucose levels.